right, good. Thanks, Bob. No problem.
Okay, we were introducing ourselves, so you want to introduce yourself, your name, where you work, and if you're already in compliance. You don't have to say.
Okay, my name is Cindy Rowe. I work at Barmon Trust. I was there for 7 years.
Barmon?
Barmon Trust.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for 7 years, but I've been in the offshore business for over 17 years. So I do a little bit of compliance, more administrative work. Also I've done money laundering seminars in the US and Caribbean.
Okay.
So I have a little bit
of background
in money laundering and compliance. I normally do seminars in the US and Kuwait.
Okay, that's nice.
Good morning. My name is Byron Olvin. I work at IntroAML as a risk and compliance coordinator. Just recently started there 3 months ago with
insurance. Okay. All right, very good. So I was saying my name is Higgins, and this is my email. If you need me, email me anytime. And I was saying that compliance is a growth area. This is something that's growing. It's become very important, and it seems like it's going to continue to grow. Compliance obviously takes in a lot more than just money laundering, and we'll talk about that as well. The beginning, the introduction is money laundering, because that's kind of where not that there wasn't compliance before, because you always had auditors and things like that, but what really set this thing on fire was the money laundering. So we'll talk about how that started and why it has become so important. If you have questions, stop me anytime. It's no problem. Let me close this shades I open here. Yeah, if you have questions, stop me anytime. If you have a comment or you disagree or you want more explanation, that's fine too. I think it's much more interesting if we have a dialogue and just me talking for 2 hours, which reminds me that the class is supposed to be now from 9:30 to 11:30. It was going to be 9, but they adjusted it. So you have a little bit more time to have breakfast on Saturday before you come into class. All right, let's start as always with a definition. What is the definition for money laundering? Okay? What do you think money laundering is? What does it mean to you when somebody says money laundering? Trying to hide something. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Process of cleaning up dirty money.
Right. Essentially, it's defined as the process whereby funds from illicit or criminal activities. Okay, the process. This is a process. Money laundering is not a one-shot deal. It's a process. That's the first thing. And you're dealing with money. You're dealing with financial instruments. It might be cash. It might be wire transfers. It might be post office money orders. Anything of value can be involved in money laundering. And it says illicit or criminal activities. And this is where you get the problem. When money laundering first started, people looked at drug trafficking. That's where it started. So it was a criminal offense. But they have broadened it now so that it's not just criminal. They say illicit. So it may be coming from tax avoidance. Now, tax avoidance is not necessarily a crime, but it's considered to be immoral and wrong. So that's why this thing keeps growing, this compliance thing keeps growing, because it's not one narrow area. They have found that it's successful, and so they keep broadening the scope of what it applies to. So illicit or criminal activities are converted into apparently legitimate income. So the process whereby funds from criminal activities are converted to And hear what they say, apparently legitimate income. The idea is to take money that came from a criminal source and make it look like it is legitimate commercial income. That's the idea of money laundering. And that, of course, is exactly what you're saying. You're taking dirty money and cleaning it up. Now, it started with narcotics trafficking, drug trafficking. When the first law was passed in the Bahamas, it had to do with the proceeds of drug trafficking. The Americans went after drugs. Everybody knows about the war on drugs. When they put up the balloons in Inagua to catch the planes coming in from Colombia, the guys in Bimini, I remember going to Bimini. You had 18-year-old guys who owned cigarette boats and who used to carry stuff back and forth to Florida. 18-year-old guys who would walk into a bar and peel out $100 bills like that. I saw that with my own eyes in Bimini. So drug trafficking was a big thing. And the Americans decided not only to go after the drugs, but also to go after the cash, because drug trafficking is a cash business, and it's a cash business in US dollars. So the Americans decided to follow the drugs and follow the money. So the first laws had to do with the proceeds of drug trafficking. And they said, if you deal with the proceeds of drug trafficking, we'll talk about what deal means, because deal is another broad term, right? So what deals with the proceeds of drug trafficking, knowing that these monies came from drug trafficking. So the first thing was, if you know that the proceeds are from drug trafficking and you deal with them, then you are guilty of money laundering. Then they said, okay, yes, but you might know, but suppose you suspect. If you know or suspect, that's the same thing. You're dealing with it knowing it's from a crime or suspecting it's from a crime, then you're guilty of money laundering. So that's how it started. And the first laws in the Bahamas were specific to drug trafficking. Then, of course, the Americans pushed for it to be broadened to all criminal activities. So today, we have what is called all crimes money laundering. It isn't just proceeds of drug trafficking anymore. It's proceeds of any kind of crime, any serious crime. If you deal with them, you're guilty of money laundering. But they went even further, okay? Because now they're talking about terrorist financing. Now, this came about because of 9/11. Everybody remembers 9/11, watching on the TV news, those towers come down and the planes crashing into the Pentagon, and the world changed after that. Okay, I mean, it's a different world today. And again, the Americans are the drivers. The Americans said, okay, you attack our country, we're going to go after you. So here, in the first one, all crimes money laundering, you're saying, what is the source of the money? Is it coming from criminal activities? Is it coming from illicit activities? And you say, okay, if this money is bad money, like you said, dirty money, then we want to stop it. But this one is different. This is what they call reverse money laundering. In other words, it isn't that the money is coming from a bad source, it's that it's going to a bad place, a bad destination. So this is about the source of funds, and this is about the destination of funds. And this one, to me, is the trickiest one. Because how am I supposed to know where the money goes? How am I supposed to know the future? I could do research and find out where it came from. I could ask questions to identify the source, But how I know where the man is going to send the money in 3 months' time?
Mhm.
That's the problem with the terrorist financing. Where will it go in the future? So that all crimes, money laundering, we can kind of deal with that. But the terrorist financing gets tricky. So we'll see how international organizations and governments have decided to try and identify the terrorist financing for us to make it a lot easier to deal with. Okay? But that is a tricky area. Okay. Any questions? Very good. All right, so money laundering, they say there are 3 stages of money laundering. The first one is called placement. Second one is called layering. And the third one is called integration. Very good. Somebody's been doing their reading. Very good. All right. A for effort. Very good. Placement. Placement is the physical disposal of cash arising from illegal activity. The physical movement of the cash bills, currency that arise from a criminal activity. What you want is to get the cash into the financial system, into the banking system. Many years ago, I always tell this story. Travelers Rest on Sunday used to have a band. And when you go out there, because it's close to Compass Point, you would meet all these English rock musicians who are recording at Compass Point, hanging out at Travelers Rest. The Rolling Stones and all these kind of people. I guess it's before your time. You don't know these old bands. But anyhow, those kind of people used to hang out there. And there's a little short guy who used to drive a Cadillac Seville. Everybody say he was into drugs. And one day I was out there on a Sunday hanging out, and he come to me and said, "You're Higgins?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You work at a central bank?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I want to talk to you. I got a problem." I said, "Well, if you got a problem, I don't mind listening, but you got to buy me a drink." I mean, I easy, but I ain't that easy, right? So you got to buy me a drink, man. So he bought me a drink. He told me he had a problem. He said he got about $50,000 cash in a safety deposit box. Okay, but the bank would not let him deposit it because it's US dollars. So he couldn't put it into his account. So he said if I could help him get it into a bank so that he could get a manager's check, he'll give me $5,000. So I said, well, this is tricky. You better buy me another drink because I got to think about this. Okay? So we talk and so, but my mother didn't raise no fool. I ain't going to fork sell for no little short man driving a Cadillac. Well, so I tell him, well, I'll think about it. I'll let you know when I go. But if I had helped him in getting the cash from the deposit box into my account, getting the manager's check payable to him, I would have been involved in placement. I have been guilty of money laundering. So it starts from the physical cash. The second one is layering. Layering is hiding the source of the cash. Hiding the source of the cash. It isn't just getting the cash into the financial system, the banking system, but you got to then hide where it had come from. And that's when you start moving it around from different accounts, paying it to different companies, transferring it overseas and bringing it back, anything to hide the source. This, of course, is one of the areas where gambling and casinos play a big part. Because, again, I remember being in a casino in Cable Beach, next to the Mania. They shut down now. The Chinese were living there. What's the purple place? What's the purple place out, hotel out Cable Beach next to the Mania? Huh? Crystal Palace, right. I remember sitting at the bar in the Crystal Palace Casino. Morning, how you doing? Compliance? Money laundering? Yeah, have a seat. Anywhere. All right. One evening, And I remember seeing this fella come in, American or English or something like that, go over to the cashier, open his briefcase, take out cash, buy chips. And then I lost him because this 22-year-old, she looked like Brazilian, came and sat next to me. So my mind kind of gets a little confused there. So I lost track. But then I saw him sitting at a table, and then I see him like he leave and went back, turning his chips, and he got a check from the cashier. And he couldn't have been at the table more than half hour. So I'm saying to myself, this is strange, you know. I mean, he just come, he had all his cash, he bought these chips, he only played for half hour, he come back. And then I say, oh, I know what happened. He is changing cash into a manager's check from the casino. So when he goes back to the States and deposits the check, he can say, well, I won this in the Bahamas. Right? So now the source is gambling winnings in the Bahamas. That is the part about later, hiding the source. And that, of course, is where you guys come in. Because the first thing people will say is, I won this at Island Luck. Or I won this at such and such a place. And then how do you prove they didn't win it? So that is why they're seen, you're seen, gaming is seen, as a very, very critical area in the layering. That's why compliance has been extended to casinos and gambling houses. And then the next one is integration. That means, how do you return the money to the owner as apparently legitimate income? How do you pay the money back? Well, gambling winnings is legitimate income. Once you, in the States, you report it for tax purposes, nobody could complain about that. But there may be other ways. You can call it rent that you're receiving for your condo in the Bahamas, or it might be dividends from shares in a company, or it might be interest on a loan. There are a lot of different ways you can use for people to receive the money that appears to be legitimate. But those are the three stages of money laundering: placement, layering, and integration. And if you go through those stages successfully, then obviously you hide the source and you convert what was dirty money into apparently legitimate funds. Now, again, you know, they will tell you that you don't always get the same sequential steps. Sometimes what happens is the money is moved around from jurisdiction to jurisdiction as cash, then it goes into the financial system. Again, I've been knocking around so long, you know, I have so many experiences I can tell you about. I used to work for a bank called the Bank of New Providence on Shirley Street, where Bank Bahamas is now. And I remember this American guy coming in with these cowboy boots and this hat on, saying he wanted to open an account. And I said, okay, I took him to the teller, and he opened his briefcase. He had, must be $100,000 in cash, US cash, in his briefcase. So he flew from the States to the Bahamas for him to do the placement. He didn't try to do it in the States. He came up, so you can move the cash from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and reverse the order of some of these steps. Again, he's hiding the source by coming to the Bahamas. He's putting it into the Bahamian financial system before taking it back. Obviously, because he can get back the same US dollar instrument. In some countries, you can't bring in US dollars and get back US dollars. You have to convert them into the local currency. I can tell you another story about that later on. A fellow who took millions of US dollars of his client money into Trinidad and then had a problem getting it out. Because in Trinidad and a lot of countries, you have to convert it into local currency, and then there's no automatic reconversion to US. So there are different ways of playing the game, but it all has, at the end of the day, getting the cash into the financial system, hiding the source of the cash, and then getting the cash back to the owners. Now, let's be clear when we talk about owner. In English common law, you can have two kinds of owners. You can have a legal owner, and you can have a beneficial owner. This is the true owner. The beneficial owner, the person who benefits from the cash, from the asset. The legal owner is just the name on the paper, the name on the paperwork. And because of this, again, you have to be careful. A person can come in and open a bank account or open an account with your firm and say, I want an account in the name of John Kevin Higgins. Okay, fine. So you think this money deposited to the account belongs to John Kevin Higgins. And it does. John Kevin Higgins is the legal owner. He is the owner of record by law. But that doesn't mean it's his money. He may be holding it for somebody. He may be a custodian for somebody. This, of course, is what a trust is all about. When you hear about trust companies, when you hear about establishing a trust, somebody is going to be the legal owner, but it's not really their money. They're holding it on behalf of somebody else. Parents, I don't know if they still do it, they used to open an account and say, Kevin Higgins in trust for my son, Jeffrey. Okay, so the account says clearly, it's my account, but I'm holding this money for somebody else, for my son. But you don't have to put that part. You could just put Kevin Higgins. You are the one who has to have the commitment, the contract, the understanding that this is not really your money. You're holding it on behalf of somebody. So part of the problem is when somebody comes in to open an account, you say, what's your name? They say so-and-so. You get their ID, passport, etc. You open the account. You think you've done your job. But there's one other step. You have to ask, will all the funds going to this account be for your benefit? Will they be beneficially owned by you? Or will you be taking money from other people and holding it on their behalf? There was a famous case in the States, in Florida. An old woman, I don't know, 70 years old, had bank accounts that she used to rent out. So she would go to a bank, open a bank account, and then she'd rent the account to you. So you could deposit, you tell her who to transfer the money to, or who to make out the checks to, and you pay her a fee for using her bank account. So people have come up with ideas like that. So you can have somebody who opens an account. You can open an account with Island Luck, or you can't open an account.
No.
Yeah.
Because I work there,
No, no, I mean customers, public. You could go in and say, I want to open an account. And the purpose of my account is to bet.
Yeah.
Right. And is there a limit how much money I can put in that?
You could put a limit on your account.
No, you. I'm asking. What? So I can put 50,000.
No, you don't monitor that.
Yeah, I know you'll monitor it, but you'll take my money. You'll take it. I don't mind. You'll take the 50 grand.
Not all at once.
How much? So what is the limit? That's what I'm asking. Is there a limit as to how much I can put in? That's what I'm asking. What's the limit? There's no limit if y'all don't know. If y'all don't know it, see, all of y'all should say 500 or 1,000. There's no limit. Because y'all ain't sure. Yeah, you ain't sure. There's no official limit. You try to be careful, but there's no official limit, right?
So you guys still are governed by the central bank, right?
No,
I know
they're gaming. They
Oh,
come on
so
the
gaming
gaming board.
board.
They have that.
Oh.
This is why they're trying to get it organized now, because they're under different rules.
See, okay, fine. No
no player will actually deposit $50,000 on their account.
No, hold on. That's a different. You go on a different
I'm
question.
just saying, so
No, but that's a different
automatically,
question. If I
that
come
would
in,
raise a flag and they would
no,
actually
no.
contact.
If I come into a game, I don't want to use Ireland. I'm saying I come into a gaming flowers or who any, and I say I want to open an account. You say, okay, fine. I need a password. Bam, bam, bam. And then you say, you say how much you want to deposit, and I say 50,000. And you say, okay, no, the limit is 10. I can only, or that's what I'm asking, because banks will have that kind of limit, but I don't think gaming has. So, okay, obviously, if somebody comes with 50,000, red flags, bells go off like the alarm. Something is wrong. We agree with that. But right now, there's no official limit. So, suppose I come in and I say, okay, I want to put in 1,000 cash, and I deposit, and I go, I drive around the block, I come back. I say, I want my money back. Do you give me a check or do you give me back in cash? In cash.
Yeah, cash.
Withdrawal or payment?
From deposit, not spending, you get all
Check. Okay. So the question is, if I get money from somebody, I open an account with you, I deposit 1,000, I come back tomorrow and say, give me a check for that. No? What you'll do? Give me all in cash? Huh? So I have to come back every day and get 300, 300, 300. But I get it in a check or cash?
Cash.
Okay, so only if you get winnings, then you get a check.
Right.
A certain amount.
What's the amount? You get a check. Under 10,000, you give me cash. Okay, so that you can't help me with that. No. Because it'll be just be cash back every time. That don't help me. Whereas if I go to a casino, they'll give me a check. So that's a difference between y'all and the casinos. It's only over 10,000 you'll get a check, right? So I don't use the gaming house. I'm not familiar with it. But that is the concern, that people can open an account which appears to be in their name, but they're using it on behalf of somebody else, the beneficial owner, the true owner. So that's one thing. Okay. If you ask me, what is the problem with money laundering? Well, obviously, the problem with money laundering is it allows people to commit crimes and keep the benefit of the crime. The idea behind punishing people for committing crimes is to take away the benefits. So if you let a man do drug trafficking, you say you catch him, you send him to jail for 5 years. But when he comes out, he still has the $2-3 million he made. He will probably say it was worth it, because I wouldn't have been making that kind of money if I was working. So you could afford to put me in jail and give me 3 meals a day, and when I come out, I get my money back. The idea is to punish him by taking away his money. So that's the first thing. The second problem with money laundering is it impacts on the economy of a country. It distorts, that's the word they use. It distorts the economy of a country. So it pushes people to invest in short-term assets rather than thinking about investing in businesses for the long term. So there are two problems. One is to punish people by taking away the proceeds of their activities, criminal activities, and the other is to stop the distortions to the economy that are created by all this money flowing around. Now, the two laws that started this in the Bahamas. The U.S. had laws before this, but the Bahamas was 1987 and 1996, and the first one was the tracing and forfeiture of proceeds of drug trafficking act. This was the very first one in the Bahamas in 1987. And you see it says the proceeds of drug trafficking, because this is what it was about. Then in 1986, almost 10 years later, then you had the money laundering. And then here it says proceeds of crime. Okay? Act. Okay, so we have gone from proceeds of drug trafficking to proceeds of crime. Doesn't matter whether it's drug trafficking or it's bank robbery or it's prostitution or it's fraud. Once it's a crime and you deal with it, then it's a problem. Now the first one, tracing and forfeiture, that was the law that created for the first time in the Bahamas a crime of money laundering. Hear what it says. Section 20 in that law says it is an offense. It is an offense. That means it's a crime. It is an offense. Okay, I don't think you'll find the Bahamian stuff in that handout. I have to give you another handout with them, just the international handout. Okay, Section 20 in the Forfeiture Act says it is an offense to assist a drug trafficker. It is an offense to assist a drug trafficker to retain the benefits of his proceeds. And the punishment is up to 14 years imprisonment and a fine or a fine. But imprisonment. This is go ahead. Sorry? 14 years. In the Bahamas, it could go up to 14 years in prison for money laundering. This is for money laundering, right? Assisting a drug trafficker in keeping the proceeds, the benefits of his criminal activities. So that was the first time in 1987 we had this money laundering type crime in the Bahamas. So then they say, okay, if I assist him moving his money around or whatever, suppose I don't know the money is from drug trafficking or from a crime. What is the position? Well, the first law said if you know or you suspect. If you know or you suspect the money is from a crime or from drug trafficking, and you provide assistance, you deal with it, then you're guilty of this crime of money laundering. But what people used to say is, well, I thought it was normal for people to carry around $20,000, $30,000 in their car. I never thought that was funny. I thought he was just a smart businessman. I didn't suspect nothing. So the court said, all right, we are not going to use knowing by itself or suspecting by itself. We're going to add should have suspected or known. Should have known. Okay, should have known. In other words, they have moved from, this is called subjective. Should have known is called objective. Okay, let me explain. In criminal law, this is in criminal law, for you to send somebody to jail, you have to show they intended to commit a crime. You have to show they had intent. Okay, the Latin word is mens rea. If you ever study law, that means your mind must have intended to commit a crime. if I'm walking down the road, okay, and a fella come up to me and say, man, I want some money. I said, man, get from around me. He said, man, give me money. I know you got money. I said, man, and I slap him. And when I slap him, he falls in the road and the car runs over him and he dies. Am I guilty of murder? No, I didn't intend to kill the man.
Well, it wasn't premeditated.
I didn't have no intent to kill him. The man tried to ask me for money. I slapped him and he fell in the road and it was an accident. So the most you could say is what they call manslaughter.
Yeah,
But I didn't. Now, if you have a different scenario where I have this 19, 20-year-old sweetheart and I find out this fella's coming around at night and I buy a gun and I wait for him and I shoot him and I say, oh, it was a mistake. I thought he was a burglar. Then they can say, no. You intended to kill him. Then you're guilty of murder because you have intent. But for you to have intent, it has to be in your mind. You are the subject. So you have to know. You have to suspect that the money was coming from drug trafficking. But then the court said, no, you don't have to know or suspect. If we, the court, think you should have known, you're guilty. So now it's objective. It's not whether you intended or you knew. It's whether the court thinks you should have known. So this, of course, is getting serious now. Because I really might have been my friend, my cousin, might have been a stranger. I assumed the man had money. I opened a bank account for him. I transferred the money. I was just doing my job. And the court said, but you should have known. And all of a sudden I go to jail. So the law today is all crimes, not just drug trafficking, and it's the objective test. You should have known, not whether you really knew or suspected. But if the court thinks there was enough evidence for you to have been suspicious, because the man came in with all his cash, he said he was a contractor, and he had this money waiting to pay his people, and he wanted to play some gaming or invest it until he needed it. And the court said, well, you should have known that was nonsense. Why would you believe a story like that? Then even whether you honestly believe it or not, you are still guilty of money laundering. So the law has raised the bar, raised the standard, and expanded the scope. And that is why you have to be so careful with this crime called money laundering. People don't spend a lot of time on fraud or other areas. Murder, robbery, those are all clear. But this money laundering thing keeps growing. One day you're outside and you're safe. Next thing, the law encompasses you and you find that what you were doing before, now you're guilty of a crime. What was normal before, now is a problem. So that is why I was saying, if you're going to go into compliance, one of the things you have to be willing to do is continuing your education, because it is growing and expanding and changing, and you got to keep up with it. Okay. Dealing with. That's what we want. The law says if you help a drug trafficker to deal with his proceeds or maintain the benefits of his proceeds, then you are guilty of money laundering. Well, what does that mean? First thing was whether you hold the money or control the money. If you hold or control the proceeds of a crime, that's money laundering. Well, hold or control means that every bank that opens an account, every business that opens an account and accepts a deposit is holding and controlling the funds. It is guilty of money laundering. So this is so broad, it takes everybody in. You have a cousin who lives on the island. He comes to town. He said, man, I get this briefcase and he wants you to keep it for me. I got to go to Miami. So you take the briefcase and you put it under your bed. He gets arrested in Miami. The police come to your house. They say, you have a briefcase. You say, no. They say, yeah, you have a briefcase under your bed. They go, they get the briefcase, they take it out. It has cash in it. You are holding and controlling the proceeds of a crime. So it's not just the banks, it's you too, if you take that money. And please, for God's sake, don't deposit it to your personal account. Next, puts funds at his or her disposal. Again, this was attacking the banks. If you lend him money, if you give him an overdraft facility or a loan, you are guilty of dealing with his funds. You say, but look, I am a financial institution. I'm a web shop. He wanted credit. He's a regular customer. He comes in all the time. He said he was short of funds. We said, all right, we give you a line of credit of $1,000 so you could continue to get. This is our money we're lending to the man. How you mean we're assisting him in his keeping his proceeds? So the court is going to say, but how do you think he's going to pay it back? Where do you think he's going to get the money to pay back your loan? From drug trafficking proceeds. So again, even by providing him with credit, they're saying you're assisting him. Then the last one was, gives any assistance in the investing of the proceeds. Now, again, I know a drug trafficker made a lot of money at one time, this is years ago, who built apartments. He built apartments out east, blocks of apartments. So if you're a contractor and you're working for him, building his apartments, are you assisting him in investing the funds? The court might say yes. The court might say you are building these apartments, getting paid in US dollars, and you don't know where this money come from? You can't see. The man don't have no 9-to-5 job. He drive around in his Mercedes-Benz all day. He out all night. He pay you every Saturday, every Friday with US dollars, and you didn't think? Of course you're assisting him. So this is why I'm saying this thing is so broad. You have to be careful. Now, defense. The defense. How do you protect yourself from such a broad, wide criminal charge? Well, the first thing is to show that you didn't know, you didn't suspect, but then suppose the court says you should have known. So if you can show you didn't know, you didn't suspect, that's part of it. But nowadays it's not enough. But you know what is the best defense? The best defense is disclosure. Did you tell somebody that you suspected? Did you tell somebody about this cash coming in? Disclosure is the best protection against money laundering. Tell somebody. When I say somebody, I don't mean somebody on the road. I don't mean whisper it so they don't get, they don't hear you. I mean in your organization, there has to be somebody responsible who you advise, preferably in writing. So there is a record that you said, so-and-so tried to open an account with this cash. I identified it as US dollars, and I wish to advise you that I think maybe some reporting may be required. Then you have something to say, well, okay, this is what I told my superior. That is the best defense, because once you advise a superior, it's their problem. It's not your problem anymore. It's their problem. Now, that is not a natural human thing. Natural human thing is to keep secret. Okay, if you hear something or you see something, keep your mouth shut. People always say, stay out of it. It ain't your business. Well, in this case, the more people you tell, the safer you are. Okay, and I'm talking about within your organization. And that is why the law requires today this famous MLRO, which stands for Money Laundering Reporting Officer. Or some people have a CO, a compliance officer. So if you have the title of compliance officer, people are going to tell you things, or they should be telling you things, which makes you responsible, and then they're going to focus on what did you do with that information. That's why you have the training. That's why you have the knowledge, because you have to know what is the next step. Once I tell you, I happy. I then write you a nice memo. I get a copy in my drawer, and I always keep a copy at home. These things is disappear from the office. And when I say I tell, they can say, no, I never get it. And I can have my copy home. I bring that to the court. But after that, then it's not my problem. I say, well, I told my compliance officers. I don't know what she did with it after that. Then the court can say, well, no problem, you clear. Mistake is you could go home. Let's deal with her now. So disclosure is the only real protection. You have to tell somebody. And then, of course, we will discuss later, internal disclosure, employee telling compliance officer or money laundering reporting officer, which is internal to the organization. And the big step, which is when you report to the financial intelligence unit, if you're a financial institution, or the gaming board inspector, or whatever. Once it goes outside of the organization, now that's the serious step. Because now you're bringing in outsiders. And I'll tell you a story about me and that too, when they reported me at one stage. Because then they start investigations and all kind of things can break out of that as well. But internally, first step, somebody must be designated as responsible for people, staff to report to. And then that person must have the knowledge and expertise to know, okay, should I send this outside to the law enforcement authorities? And sometimes you get a conflict because the compliance officer may want to report it outside, but the manager may say no. So then what happens? When the court comes, what you going to say? Well, I wanted to report it, but my manager say no. They say, but you have a responsibility. You're the one with the title compliance officer. Why didn't you report it? But at the same time, you want to keep your job, right? So you don't want to get the manager mad. So how do you deal with that conflict? So we'll talk about those things. All right. The second law passed in the Bahamas, this one, the money laundering proceeds of crime, we said it expanded the proceeds of crime from being just proceeds of drug trafficking, dealing with the proceeds of any serious crime. So that's one thing. But it also dealt with financial institutions. Now here's the tricky part. Under the law, financial institutions includes, of course, banks and trust companies, of course. Insurance companies, of course. But then it says lotteries and gaming premises. That's yours. And it has dealers in securities and portfolio managers. That's investment people. So it is, again, very broad. Now, there is a distinction in the sense that if you're a bank and trust company, you have the central bank as your regulator. If you're a gaming and lottery, you have the gaming board as your regulator. If you're a securities dealer, you have the Commission of Securities. If you're an insurance company, you have the Insurance Commission. So there are different regulators. What the government is trying to do is bring them together so there is a set standard for all these financial institutions covered by the law. The banks at the moment are probably the highest standard because the banks get pressure from the Americans, and if they want to continue doing business with American banks or correspondent banks, they have to meet American standards. And the focus has been on the banks because, like the man said, that's where the money is. So the banks and the trust companies have had the most pressure. Now the pressure is coming on insurance companies and on people like yourselves, gaming. And the idea is at some point with the AML, not necessarily all areas, but in the anti-money laundering, to get everybody up to the same standard that the banks have. So they have a money laundering reporting officer, they have manuals and all these kinds of things. So you will be held in the future to higher and higher standards. So it's not enough to say, well, right now the gaming board don't require that. They may not require that right now, but it will come. So if you're going to put in place a compliance system for your institution, you need to know what is the international standard. That is another thing I try to explain to people. You might say to me, well, Higgins, this is the Bahamas, right? We don't make a lot of noise if you give a politician $200 to help you out to get a reference, help you get a job. This is the Bahamas, man. We don't make a big deal over that. You go to the passport office, you used to be able to say, well, hold on to that $50, $100. See if you can get my passport to the top of the file, my application get to. Now they have a sign up in the passport office. It is illegal to tip civil servants. They have a sign up in the office. Standards are getting higher and higher and higher. So you have to say to yourself, if I am setting out a compliance system, I have to be aware of the international standards. It isn't enough to say Bahamas, Bahamians. No. These kind of things, you are judged by the international standard. You say, well, so what? If Americans have that standard and they don't think I'm up to that standard, so what? The problem is there are international organizations that come to the Bahamas and do reports on the Bahamas to say whether or not we are meeting those international standards. And so when Bahamian businesses try to do business in the States or in Europe, then problems arise. So this isn't like a local thing where you can say, well, we have our own thing, the way we do things and so on. No, this is an international standard that we are going to have to meet if we want to play with the big boys, if we want to play in the international financial game. And the reputation of the Bahamas is what we use to attract wealthy people. So you get a bad reputation. Why should wealthy people want to come and bring their money here? Why should they want to come and live here? So that is what you're dealing with. It's a tricky business. Okay. Any questions? No? All right. You're smart. No questions? No. Very good. Okay. The other one, apart from y'all, that has come under a lot of scrutiny, is money transmission services. MoneyGram, Omni. We used to have Western Union, but Western Union got shut down because it ran into problems in Cayman. The Bank Fidelity that had the Western Union franchise, they didn't have problems here, but they ran into problems in Cayman with money laundering. So they decided that the risk was they might end up losing their bank license. So they gave up the money, the Western Union franchise, because they didn't want to get slammed with a lot of charges and then lose the banking license, which is the core of their business. So again, money transmission services, very big on compliance. I was in, let's not use the name, I was in one of the money transmission people about 2 months ago, and this lady came in, and she said, I have this passport, my Bahamian passport is in this name, but I was born in the States, and in the States I have my father's name, so I have an American passport in this other name. So they look at her Bahamian passport, and they say, but you don't have no entry stamp in it when you came to the Bahamas. She said, no, when I come in on my U.S. passport. So the lady said, no, sorry, we can't do no business. Because they're on guard at all times. Another time I was in there, I see these three fellas whispering, and they passing money back and forth. And one went, and he said, I want to transfer this. And then the next one went to the other one and said, I want to transfer this, all to the same person, the same name. He said, no. 3 different people at the same time transferring money to the same person. No. Now it might not have been. It might have been that there's a limit on how much. I remember there used to be a limit on how much you could send. right? Like I mean, I don't remember, it was like 1,000 per transaction or something like that. So it might have been they were just splitting it up because they had to send more than 1,000. So they might have said, well, okay, you do 500, you do 500 because it'll be 1,500. But any kind of thing like that, and the people, red flags go up. So that is how serious this whole compliance thing has become. You have to be very careful now. And the thing is, if people ask you a question, and people think compliance is something where you just ask question and tick the box, ask question, tick the box. Compliance is a thinking thing. If somebody asks you a question and you give them an answer, and for the compliance officer, based on their knowledge of business and commerce, the answer doesn't make sense, they can cut you off. So part of being a compliance officer is being aware of how business is normally done and how people normally do their financial transactions. So you have something to judge people by when they say, I'm sending this to my grandmother. Your grandmother? Yeah. Okay, where is she? She's in Las Vegas. You don't look like an American to me. You look like your grandmother should be in Congress. No, she lives in Las Vegas. Okay. See, it's that kind of thing where you have to be thinking. You don't just tick the box and say, okay, grandmother, bam, you finish. Okay. Now, the law says failure to maintain procedures, failure to maintain records, all of these are crimes. So we have now the compliance system starting to develop. We're going to talk about the legal basis for the compliance system. But let's just identify what are the elements of this compliance system that are starting to emerge from these legal requirements. The first one, of course, is identification. Identification. Identifying the person who's coming in to deal with your institution. But this has grown, and we'll talk about that. The second one is record keeping. Then there is monitoring. Then there is reporting. And there is training. When we start to talk about a system, compliance system, we're talking about having these kinds of elements, okay? Not just to deal with money laundering, okay? Not just to deal with money laundering or terrorist financing, but also to deal with other issues that can impact on the reputation of your organization. But let's go through the basics here, just so we have an idea. When we talk about the compliance system, everybody understands what we're talking about here. ID. Remember, we want to know the beneficial owner, not just the name on the paper, okay? But we want to know who is the true owner. That's what we want to know. You say, well, okay, that's straightforward. We ask them, you know, who do these funds belong to? They say they belong to me. I say, okay, fine, let me see your passport. So normally today, most places will want two pieces of ID. Used to be one. Passport is the best ID, but not every Bahamian has a passport. Not every person who comes in is going to have a passport. Maybe if you're dealing with foreigners, they have to have a passport to come into the country. But if you're dealing with a Bahamian, they may not have a passport. So then you say, well, okay, driver's license is the next second best. But then there's some people who don't drive. Or if they drive, they don't have a license. So what happens then if they don't have a driver's license, they don't have a passport? Well, voter's card is the new thing that they've started using. But suppose the fella don't vote. Huh? National insurance, right. Because if he doesn't have a national insurance card, that means that the sucker don't work. So you still don't want nothing to do with it. Okay, so that to me is the best cutoff point, right? I might say, well, voter's card, he said, well, I don't really register, I move from constituency. I can understand that. Most people vote, but not everybody votes. But if you don't have an NIB card, Jack, you don't even never had a job. So I really don't want nothing to do with you because that money can be legitimate if you never work for it. So I cut you off immediately if you don't have an NIB card. So for me, NIB is one of the best IDs for Bahamians. Not for foreigners, but for Bahamians. Very good, because it tells you at least this man had a job sometime. There must be records of him with somebody. So this is very good. But also nowadays, because like I said, this is money laundering is a growing area. Also nowadays, they talk about source of funds. Many people, many organizations have a separate form that is completed when you're establishing a relationship, opening an account. Where is the money going to come from? And what they're trying to do is develop a profile. They're trying to develop a profile to say, where does your money come from? What amounts of money will be going through this account? What is the purpose of this money moving through the account? Let's say that I'm a civil servant. Okay, I say I'm a civil servant. I work for the Ministry of Housing. Fine. I come in and I want to open an account because I like to pay, I think I'm a lucky person. I'm going to win some money. And you say, okay, fine. How much do you expect to be playing, betting on a weekly basis? And I said, $3,000. You say, where do you say you work? Ministry of Housing. Ministry of Housing don't pay 3,000 times 4 for you to be gambling. It's not possible. Not even the permanent secretary make that kind of money. So right away it don't compute. So this is the thing here, is the source of funds is used to build a profile. Now, not just a profile when they open the account, but we have today computerized systems that will see transactions for that name going through and say, yes, it's in the range. Yes, it's in the range, it's okay. Or I can say it's outside the range, beep, red flag. Ask questions. Why is this? He said he was going to do 300 a week. Now it's up to 700 or 800. What is the reason for it? Did he get a promotion? What's going on? So part of building the profile is what we call establishing a norm, a guideline against which to judge activity of this particular customer. So this is how sophisticated this thing is getting now. Because human beings can only do so much. You can only do so much checking every day of the same transactions. You can get tired. You can get bored. But computers can do it every day. And they'll make less mistakes than people. So when the man comes in, or I say the man, the person comes in, to establish the account, that is the time to get as much information as possible. Not just on who they are, but the purpose and use and source of their facility and how they're going to use it. That's number one. The second thing is, it is much easier to get information from people when they come in to open the account. Once they've established the account, for you to go back and ask them, they get pissed off. They say, but I've been doing this for 3 years now. You just come and ask me this? What's the problem? I never had a problem before. The other lady didn't ask me for this. Why are you asking me for this? They get upset. So you get everything you need ID-wise, at the beginning. As much information to allow you to identify the beneficial owner, to develop a profile of how you expect this to operate. So that if you have a computerized system, or if you put in place a computerized system, you will have a red flag when they go outside the norm. Now, again, record keeping. There is a requirement under the law to hold records for a certain amount of time. And there are two kinds of records. There are the ID records, and there are the transaction records. And they're required under the law to be held for 5 years after the cessation of the relationship. That means after they close all their accounts. Not just that one and open a new one, but after they cut off all their accounts with the organization. Because a fellow could close one account and open a new one. That don't mean the relationship is at an end. That just means you all change accounts. So, and this is set out in the law, the 5 years minimum. Now, with banks and them, they go even further because there is another concern, which is civil action, and the time period for civil action is 7 years. So many banks and trust companies, insurance companies will hold their records for up to 7 years, not just for the money laundering thing of 5, but up to 7 years before they destroy it. Now, it doesn't stop there. That's why I say this thing gets more and more complicated. Because now you have to have what's called records management. What do I mean by record management? When I went to school and I studied management, nobody talked about records management. When I was working at the central bank, you finish with your old files, you put them in the box, they take them and throw them on the dump. You can't do that no more because the law says you have to hold them for a specified period. So somebody has to sign off for the destruction of records. Somebody has to say these records date from this. The relationship has ceased as of this date. Therefore, you can now destroy these records. Because you can't go to court and say we made a mistake. The judge will look at you and laugh and say, yeah, you made a mistake when I sent you the box out. You can't go to court. You have to have somebody responsible now for managing the records because you have to hold those records for a specified period. The question, you're going to hold hard copies? You're going to hold digitized? When do you destroy? When do you erase? This is a whole new area of management. This is just like compliance. This is a new career area, records management. And the other thing is, it isn't even 5 years after the cessation of the relationship. That's what the law says. But now it depends whether there's an ongoing investigation. Because even if it's after 5 years and there's an ongoing investigation, you can't shut them off, erase them, destroy them without approval from the regulator. The regulator got to write you and say the investigation is completed, you can now destroy your records. So the gaming board or the central bank or the financial intelligence unit got to sign off on it. So you need to have somebody in charge managing this stuff. This ain't simple no more. Yes, ma'am.
So 7 years, okay, 5 years, so.
No, 5 years is the anti-money laundering limit. But you have to decide whether there are other limits you need to be aware of. In banking, you can be sued over a transaction for up to 7 years. 7 years is the time limit for a civil action. So that's why banks say, okay, 5 years is money laundering. But it's not just 5 years. It's 5 years after you cease the relationship, which may be more than, So, and then they say 7 years after the transaction, you could be sued. So they usually hold their stuff for 7, just to make it easy, so you don't have to, be switching back and forth. So most banks and them, they use 7 years for their records management limit before destruction. And like I say, once there is no ongoing investigation, because that sets the clock back again. If you did a report to your regulator, gaming board, financial intelligence unit, whatever, and they say we're investigating it, before you destroy anything, whether it's 5, 10, 7, whatever, you have to go back to them and say, please confirm that these records are no longer required. And they will write back and say, yes, investigation has been completed. No problem. Because the worst thing to do is destroy the records when you know there's an investigation. You know the court can say, well, buddy, you knew that there was an investigation and you destroyed the records? Oh, well, we know where you stand. We know whose side you are. Everybody with me? Okay. All right, monitoring. Again, this has to do with not looking every day at every transaction. You'll go crazy. What this has to do with is using the exception rule. Right? You develop your profile so you know what is the norm to be expected for that particular account. And then if there is an exception where it goes over or under or outside the norm, then it sends off an alarm. Again, today people are going more and more to computerized monitoring systems so that you use human beings to make decisions after the computer system has flagged the exception. So computer says, Kevin Higgins' account went over the norm or under the norm, or he made more transactions this week than he normally does. Boom. So you get a report, exception report. You go through it, you say, okay, Kevin Higgins, what do? You don't call the police, for God's sake. First thing you do is call me and ask me, Mr. Higgins, we noted X, Y, and Z. Could you please advise? There might be a clear reason for the change. I might say, well, my wife left me. I got a new sweetheart, so I'm taking out more money. I mean, that's the logical thing, right? You get a new sweetheart, you spend more money than on the old wife, right? That's normal. She's looking at me like she wants to shoot me. I only cracking a joke, man. Don't take it so serious. You know? So you gotta be careful with them, I'm only kidding you. Are you married? Okay. So don't worry, you're all right. Your boyfriend don't play that game. You're in good shape. They cut their eyes at you. You know what I mean? Anyhow, so with this one, monitoring involves asking. People say to me, well, Mr. Higgins, if you ask them questions, I say, that is normal way of doing business. If I come home late one night, I expect my wife to say, well, what happened? Did something happen? I don't expect her to say, you get a sweetheart. No, ask me. Maybe I fell asleep, I agree. Maybe. But maybe I might have a flat tire. I don't know. Ask me. First thing to do is ask when you see an exception. Next, reporting. Now, we have already explained you have internal reporting and you have external. Internal is IntroAML. Okay. This is staff to the compliance officer or MLRO within the organization. And this is from your compliance officer or MLRO to the regulator. Okay? Now, for financial institutions, we've said banks and trust companies, they report to the financial intelligence unit. Okay? There's a suspicious transaction reporting form, there's a procedure, and so forth and so on. Now, for gaming organizations, who do you all report to if there's a suspicious transaction? Is there a clear regulator? Is it gaming board? Is it financial intelligence unit? Gaming board. So you all go to the gaming board. So that's correct. Whoever is your regulator, that's who you go to. I have seen cases. All right, let me step back. In big banks, big financial institutions, you have compliance officers, senior compliance officers, vice president of compliance, all the way up. And normally compliance is one of those things like audit that has a clear line to the board of directors so that managers can't interfere in it. So that's what big financial institutions. But in smaller financial institutions, you will find that you have the compliance officer or the money laundering reporting officer because the law requires it, but they report to the same manager who's in charge of the operation. So when you have a conflict, when the money laundering or the compliance officer wants to say, this is, in my view, in my opinion, sufficient evidence for us to report externally. But the manager said, man, I don't want problems. I don't want you telling them when they come in and investigate. So I don't think you should report it. Remember what I said? Disclosure is the only protection. Not only, is the best protection. So if you are a compliance officer and you have an issue, you discuss it with your manager, and he says, I don't think you should send it outside. For God's sake, write a memo to him, setting out the evidence you have, the reason why you think it should be reported to the external regulator, and based on our discussion, you have advised that I should not report this matter. And then you send it to him and you keep your phone. Because when something happens, you know what he can say? He can say, no, I didn't say that. I didn't say you shouldn't report it. If you thought you should report it, you're the compliance and you should have reported it. That's what he's going to say. So you make sure and provide your evidence. You disclosed it to him or her, and she said, or he said this. This is the one, not the one. This is one area, probably the area where you can get criticized the most, where you had evidence and you didn't say anything, you didn't report, whether internally or externally. If a staff member knows something and they don't tell the compliance officer, that's an issue. If the compliance officer knows something and they don't tell the regulator, that's an issue. Because that's your job. Training. The law says once a year for financial institutions, staff should be trained. Now, training is really, again, two parts. You have intro for new staff. You have update and review. Updates, let's call it, which is supposed to be annually for all staff. Once a year, updates. And then you have specialized. For the compliance officers and MLROs. Okay, so training, new staff, updates for all staff, specialized training for your compliance department, compliance staff. I guess I should put here, manual. Because all of this stuff should be set out in writing for your company. Okay? Somebody should be able to go to the manual and say, this is the policy, this is the form I have to use to do the report, this is what needs to be done in this circumstance. It needs to be in writing. So really the manual is, if you like, your starting point, but it covers everything that we have discussed. So if you don't have a manual, you've got a problem. You're in the dark. You're feeling your way in the dark. You need to have a manual. Even if you start with a simple manual and then you grow it and expand it and develop it as you learn more and as you gain more experience. But when a new staff member comes on the job, you should be able to say, this is our compliance manual. As small as it is, if it's 10 pages or whatever, and then you could add to it as you go. Like they give you the binder, so you could put new policy as it is developed. But you need to, that's one of the things the law is going to say when they judge you, whether or not you have a compliance system, is do you have a manual? That's the first thing. That will include job descriptions for the compliance officer or the MLRO officer that says what are their responsibilities, who they report to. It will have an example of the form you use to report. It will say whether you report to the gaming board or the financial intelligence unit. It'll have an example of the form you use for external reporting. All of that has to be in your manual. Okay. Today we obviously got off to a late start because of the alarm and stuff like that. But I need a timekeeper. I need somebody who will tell me when it's 11:30. Because for me, this is sexy. See, I'll talk all day. Don't make no difference to me. Huh? It's supposed to be 9:30 to 11:30. So huh? Right. So you're going to be the timekeeper? Every class you tell me, yeah, but I got my back to that. I'm watching y'all. I ain't seeing that. I think I got eyes in the back of my head. This to me is exciting stuff. After God made women, He made money. And there's nothing more sexy than money. Right. He like this. He like it. She just get mad. He like it. So that's give you a taste of what we're going to be discussing in this class. Like I say, if you have questions, stop me now. And and ask me the questions because there is a test at the end. There's a test, right? They told you that, right? So stop me now if I'm not clear. If there's something that you know from your work that doesn't fit with what I'm saying, tell me. Let's see if we can work it out. Maybe I'm wrong for your particular financial institution, or maybe your financial institution hasn't thought about what we're discussing. So you could go back and look good and say, well, I think so and so. You don't have to say Mr. Higgins said. You can say, well, I read the manual and I think you're missing something there. Like you're an expert, you can show off, you know what I'm saying? So take advantage of this. You don't like me, right? I can see you. She's saying, what the hell is wrong with this old man? Sorry, I can't help it. I like this stuff. Turns me on. Okay? So that's, sorry again about the alarm, but that's our first class. I see you next week, 9:30. Read the handout. We should have a new handout for you next time. Okay? Good. Everybody sign the form? Okay, good. Email?
He's supposed to bring or
I think he's gonna email you the next set. I think you're gonna ask him, Mr. Pratt, but I think he said he was gonna give you copies of the first one to make you feel good. And after that, he's gonna get stingy. I think that's what exactly. He got to email them to all of you. So I think that's why they ask for your email on here. So, but ask him as you go out to make sure. Take care, man. All right, take care. Nice weekend. You need help in there?
No, I'm not. Then tell them